YouTube! It's been a little minute and I've been absent a little bit at the time of this video because I've been on the road quite a lot, and so decided to give a little update of where we're at and also give you an update in terms of where I'm at in terms of my push day. And so we're smashing chest today, and it's always chest day, best day. So hopefully people haven't missed me too much. I'm going to get back on a regular posting cadence now for these last few weeks of prep. So we're here. We're about 4.5 weeks out now. So in a pretty heavy deficit. So now it's all about at least maintenance of numbers, but we're still going to see how much we can push and progress. Potentially, hopefully, won't need a refeed or anything like that. But we're hitting champs again. So again, some of my content has been in the new facility at this point, but we're going to be doing a pretty extensive push day today. So I'm excited for it. And I've been seeing quite a lot of stuff on social media recently, especially kind of the things that I'm trying to quash on TikTok. And I just want to take a second to talk about the Dr. Mike Israetel debate. Now, we've got Solomon Nelson coming out, absolutely rinsing Mike's PhD thesis. There's a lot of grammatical errors, there's some data entry errors, there's some potentially questionable statistics. And ultimately, as much as this is a reflection on Dr. Mike, because he has in the past flaunted about his PhD and being an expert in the field and stuff like that, I think it just now has opened the eyes to the public in terms of like what actually academic prowess is, and even if you are an applied coach, what kind of experiences you need. And honestly, I think people like Mike and some others out there, they've realized that they can create businesses from their content, and ultimately now it's just a game of controversy and engagement. I don't think that truthfully deep down a lot of the things that Mike says are based on him going and sitting down and reading scientific journals each night, peer reviewing research, and articulating topics in a systematic fashion. So there's no real surprise there that his thesis is a reflection of what it is. But I'm going to give Mike a little bit of defense here, because realistically, the student should not be blamed for a poorly executed PhD program. It generally falls on the principal supervisor that is on his supervisory team, and I'm not sure exactly who else was on it, but Mike Stone was the senior supervisor on Mike Israetel's PhD. And Mike Stone is he is a PhD, he's a prof, he's a pioneer in sport and exercise science in the US. And some of his publications are like, strength and conditioning, but he's a well-respected figure in the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Again, he's an older guy. And so realistically, you have to start questioning, like, how did Mike Stone let this happen? How did the other supervisor let this happen? But also, I'm not sure exactly how Mike's PhD defense went, whether it was presentation style, whether it was a full thesis review, and he was sat and interviewed. So my process, I had external and internal reviewer, and we sat for hours, a few hours at least, talking about my thesis and defending and critiquing and basically hitting different topics. And the one thing I'll say is that no PhD student's work is ever going to be perfect. Like, it should advance the field, it should have new concepts, and that was kind of a couple of the arguments that were laid against Mike's thesis, is that like it was just basically a bit of a regurgitation of what already existed. But he did do these investigations in a different population, a different sample, and things like that. So there's still a little bit of freshness, and I don't think there's anything wrong with replication studies either. We need a lot more of them, especially in the sport and exercise science field. Anyway, the thing with the thesis is that it's going to be a constructed document and it should tell a story. It sounds like Mike's was kind of more pieced together, which isn't always the best way to do these sort of things. But again, this comes down to the supervisory team. How is the supervisors allowing this piece of body of work to be acceptable enough? Maybe that was their standards and maybe that does reflect on them, but I am still a little bit skeptical of why Mike Stone would let that type of quality work go out for Mike Israetel, but then not allow it for people like John Waggle, Tim Sukamel, Brad DeWeese, Yuki Mizuguchi, I think is his name. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. Like all of these PhDs that have had really impactful work in the field of strength conditioning and sports science. So I'm kind of like surprised here. So I think like there's potentially a little bit more that we should be investigating with this stuff. And then the last thing that I'll say is, who reviewed this PhD, right? If we have a lot of issues regarding Mike's PhD, who were the reviewers? Like, how did they allow this to be passed and accepted? There should have been major corrections, there should have been major reviews if there was so many errors and things like that. So the initial thoughts are that the review process is not the same process that I went through as a PhD, because I had minor corrections within my thesis, and I actually had to remove quite a large, sizable chunk of my literature review originally, and then I had to add it back in, which was kind of ironic. But again, for me, it's an interesting thing that we don't know who reviewed this PhD. So I think we have to basically understand who those people are and start to shine a light on them a little bit, because how did they let that happen? And I think this is kind of going to be my last part of this rant. This is academia in a nutshell, right? Journals and research, publications, they go under a peer review process. And so the publication is essentially at the whim of whether these 2 reviewers or 3 reviewers and an editor are true experts in that subject topic matter. And sometimes I get invited to review papers where, like, just because my background is exercise science, but it's a topic that I have no right in reviewing. Like, I could probably do a surface level review, but I'm not going to be able to provide a thorough critical review like an expert would. So I generally reject these, but there'll be people out there that just accept them because they want to get the review experience, or they think they can do it and they know the editor and they're doing a favor. And so that's where peer review process is also broken, in my opinion. Like, I think a lot of studies should be pre-registered so we understand their methodologies up front. I think that the peer review process, it should be an open review process, so more than one subject matter expert can come in and critique a topic. And honestly, I think eventually where journals should go is that bodies of work should be dynamic in a sense. And what I mean by that is they should be able to be adapted as time goes on. So almost having kind of a preprint version, a published version 0.1, published version 0.12 if we need it, and stuff like that, because there's always going to be certain critiques and there's always going to be things that even reviewers miss, even the best reviewers. So that's kind of like my thought process there. Again, I don't think science is perfect by any means, and then also there's this expectation that PhDs are supposed to be experts in their specific given field, right? But coming out at the back of a PhD process, you're not an expert. You are well read, you're well versed, but you're by no means an expert. Like, you'll just know a topic a little bit better than you should have before. Because the PhD process is about research training. It's about critical thinking skills. It's about application of research. It's about figuring out the broader scope of things and being able to action these things critically in your work. So I kind of sort of get a little bit annoyed when people are like, well, a PhD has to be an expert. Like, if they've done a 4-year program, there's no way that they're an expert in that specific field, because they still haven't gathered enough evidence and things like that. I'm almost 10 years later after graduating from my PhD, and I'm still learning things every single day. So anyway, a little bit of a rant. Let's get the push session done. We'll see you in the gym. All right, so we're here for the session, and you're going to be thinking, Craig, what's changed? And honestly, not much. The program has kind of stayed the same for a little while because we're about consistency. So we're doing our usual warm-up here, which is a seated low to high fly. And as I'm doing this, just talk you through the main changes, which has been calories, really. That's the only variable that's changed for the last few weeks. So we're adding load, and we just cluster warm up this to get to our working weight for the day. So pretty quick, simple jumps. Again, if you've seen my cluster warm up content, you'll know that we normally take like 15, 20-ish seconds, get reset up, leave a bunch of reps in reserve because we want a little bit of activation, but we want to leave stuff in the tank for our main working sets. And so we've talked about this in the past, but having the cuffs, it just helps honestly with more of a comfort thing. I always find the D handles hit my arms and things like that, whereas with the cuffs, a little bit more comfortable. Slightly shorter than lever arm, so we're still on the wrist. We're not cuffing at the elbow, not just yet. Might throw that progression in a little later. I'm waiting for a little special delivery on some cuffs, so that'll be cool. But the other thing that's kind of changed with this program is we now have access to literally this playground, which is CHAMPS ELYSIUM, and this gym is unbelievable. It's got all the best equipment that we could want, and so it's definitely helped to blow up my chest, as well as other body parts. So we're going to document this last few weeks of prep because we're going to be locked in. I'm not going to be traveling, so that's going to be fun. But again, a lot of people generally ask me why I warm up with a cuff-based exercise first, and it's normally to do with joint torque and joint strain. It's just slightly easier. So you've probably seen my format in the past where I do the first set between the 6 and 9 range. So today I'm hitting the 6 reps. I've honestly been coming off a few days of moving and sickness a couple of weeks before that. So body's a little bit more tired than it normally is. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit more rest. And I'll probably stay at this weight for the second set and do another 6 to 9 range. I just hit 6 there, so maybe a little back down as well. You obviously just gotta go off feel. So this set might have potentiated, it might not have. All right, we're gonna attack this set this time. So a little less focus on control, and just being explosive with it. See how many more reps we can get out of the same weight.
How I work so hard, it seems like he's never got time because he writes every note, he writes every line, and I've seen it work, but not like it was on his mind. It's like the design is sitting in his head every time.
All right, so that's chest warm. Now we're gonna hit some weighted dips. All right, next up we have the weighted dips, and we now have access to the M-Torture belt squat to do our dips, which is a crazy bit of kit, and honestly it's really fucking good. Ooh. I think we got 7 there, so that's in our usual range of what we're aiming for. And this is quite honestly one of the best machines that I've done to use for chest bias dips, because we can get a little bit more forward lean, and so perfect for a push day where we are trying to go a little bit more chest focused, but we're still obviously getting some tricep work in there too. And so this is one where the machine itself is pretty heavy to start with, but essentially we don't need to go too crazy, especially right now. So yeah, I'm normally taking about 2.5 minutes rest for this one, and then we're just going to do 2 working sets before we go into some of our more push dominant chest exercises as well. All right, so we're just getting 2 working sets in here. We want to leave some juice in the tank for more of our bench pressing exercises as well. We're going to take 3 minutes rest here, just because I hit a couple more reps than I actually expected, which is a good thing. All right, Smith machine, we do 1 little feeder set, and then go into 2 working sets. Like, crank the music. It's always a good time when the warm-up feels good. So that was a little feeder, and then we're going to working. All right, so this is gonna be first working set. I'm gonna see what we get, and then we might do a little ad, or we'll go to failure both sets. All right, either I'm cooked or that's way more than what I should be programming right now. All right, take 2. We took 10 kgs off. Might have been a bridge too far for this incline angle.
Welcome to motherfucking Detroit, my friend.
Fuck. Oh, so I actually hit the wrong weight. So this was that weight that I hit earlier was supposed to be for the low incline, not for high incline. So that was my mistake. Got to read the program properly. And so we adjusted the bench. We've gone to low incline now. And so we use the incline as a potentiator for this one. All right, we got a nice little back down set next, so that should feel a little better. All right, next working. Fatigue is definitely starting to kick in now. All right, I forget what's next on the program, honestly. I think it's decline. So we had decline. I knew that it was in here somewhere, and it's one that I've thrown in a little bit more recently again, as we haven't declined for a little while. And it's kind of a bit more of like a hybrid. So there's some tricep work in here as well. So rather than JM pressing, I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds in with this one. So again, 2 little working sets, nothing crazy. So similar thing, 6 to 9, and then we're going to go back down and go more into a 12 to 15 for this one. So as I'm just unwrecking the weight, I know that a lot of people have quote unquote vaulted the decline press, and honestly I don't think that they should. I think that if we hit our chest in 3 different positions, probably 4 if you include some form of adduction, so like a fly. I think that is going to be an all well-rounded chest program. So the one thing that you can probably take out and get away with it is decline, but honestly I found putting these back in has helped with my chest growth and gains recently. So that's kind of my main reason for having these in there. And then this kind of like top set, working set with a back down. Honestly, I've done this a little bit in the past as well, but now that we're on a bit more of a calorie restriction and calorie deficit, it's just a little bit of intensity energy conservation. So rather than like grinding through sets and like hitting 6s, I want to do something where it feels a little bit more comfortable. The perception of effort is still there, but it's at slightly higher rep range. And you might be thinking, well, Craig, you have less energy. Why would you then do stuff that's more metabolically demanding? And I think my answer to that is the calorie trade-off. So actually doing a little bit more, burning a little bit more energy, a little bit more calories in this deficit is going to help me cut a little bit more. But if I keep trying to grind high intensity, I'm going to fatigue and I'm going to feel a little bit down. It's going to affect later on. So this is where I think people get confused and think that volume is just going to be the thing that fatigues you. But if you're accommodated to these volumes and these intensities, a little back down set is not going to break your next exercise. So that's where I think a lot of this volume and calcium ion release fatigue and things like that, like being a bit more of an advanced lifter, my stretch channels are going to be less susceptible to the stretch and to the release of calcium ions for the facade off because I've been training for so long. So that's like another thing, is that the fatigue demon shouldn't catch up to you. And you know better than anybody your own body, and I know that I can do this and feel recovered for my next sets and also feel recovered for my next session as well. If I keep grinding high intensity, I'm going to start losing motivation and I'm just not going to want to approach the next set. So less talking, more lifting. Okay, that's good. Now I think I have some shoulder work next. Again, this program, I'm in fucking prep brain fog. I can't even remember what's wrote down in the order, especially because I have an A and B day. But we'll see on the next machine. Alright, so this has been a new addition with the standing lateral raise, and I generally hit 2 sets with it being a little bit higher, and then 2 sets with it being lower. And then with this one, we're just taking every set to failure and taking 2 minutes in between each one. And so some of the reason for doing 2 standing higher and then going lower is just the delt contribution and then the actual range of motion of what we do the fly at. So a little bit more shorter and lengthened position. So that's kind of like the thought process there. Again, I generally like my arms to be aligned with the cam, so having my shoulders up there. But all right, so we lowered it down. Hit this next set. So, as a rest for this last set, just sit down, fuck it, is normally taking about 2 minutes, but you'll notice that with these lateral raises, I'm actually hitting 4 sets, whereas other exercises, we compound the sets with different exercise variations. So I've already hit technically 8 sets of chest. We can maybe classify it as maybe 7 or a little bit less than 7 if we say that the tricep dips are fractional sets. But also, I actually forgot that we had, what did we have in there? The warm-up with the flies as well. So it's around about 8 sets of chest. So relative to shoulders, there's a little bit anterior delt in the incline press, so we can add that up. So again, we're getting to approaching 6 sets for this sort of thing. So then we are going to finish off with a little bit of chest accessory where I like to get some high volume of stuff in, and then we'll hit some arms. So this is like a bit of a hybrid push day where it's push, chest, shoulder focus, but then we get some bis and tris in as well, because I definitely need to get some volume of that in there. So last set here. Good. So I got some pec deck coming up and some high flies. So a little high volume accessory work. I've been feeling less comfortable on flies recently, so I'm keeping it lighter, going more reps. So same rest periods as before. Like I said, I've had a little bit of discomfort in my left arm recently with pec deck, so that's why we've changed this one up a little bit. All right, so at this point, you're probably like, this is a shit ton of chest volume. Why are you doing so much? I've seen on the internet that you should only do 2 sets per muscle group per session and all this thing. And my answer is, I have been exposed to these type of loads for a pretty long time now. So basically, at some point, you're just gonna have to stack sets, because you're not going to get away with just being able to do 2 sets per exercise for a given muscle group. So that's why we're doing that. So we're finishing off our well-rounded chest day here with high flies. So again, we don't have to go crazy with the volume and intensity, but we're going to go slightly higher reps and use that to our advantage, which means we don't have to necessarily be as heavy with it. So aiming between kind of the 12 and 15 range again for this one. The hardest thing about these type of flies is just getting it into position. All right, so too heavy for today. So that's where we now do a back offset, drop it down quite substantially, so then that way we can get some rep volumes. But that felt good. Chest is feeling pumped. I know the pump is now vaulted as well, so we don't go ever chasing pumps anymore for some reason. Like, when are people going to actually look good if they don't have a pump? You know what I mean? And I think we get that confused as well. Like, oh, the pump's not necessary. Yeah, the pump's not necessary to get growth, but it's generally a little byproduct of getting those stimulating reps in, so to speak. We're getting blood flow to the area. We're getting good mechanical tension by doing a high volume set of a given intensity. So again, do we have to do every exercise high intensity? No. Do we have to do every exercise high volume? No. As you've noticed in this program, hopefully, is we do a little bit of mixture. So we start off our session, compound exercises, harder, higher intensities, and then these more isolated movements we can do with volume. And again, we'll recover between sets and be able to get different length tension relationships of the muscle from different positions. And that's generally my philosophy. You probably hear this every single time I post a video, but I just like a slight bit of variation, but then that variation being consistent in my program every single time that I lift. So that's the difference there. And the other thing about this environment is you're surrounded by people who want to train hard, and that also is contagious, because what it then makes you want to do is train hard too. So I see somebody across the gym right now absolutely giving it their all for leg extension, and they're in prep for the Olympia. I'm just in prep for a local regional show, you know? So that kind of mindset, it's a contagious mindset. So being in environments like this really, really helps. So, all right, we dropped down quite a bit. So this set should be higher volume. If it's not, that means the fatigue demon has gone. Oh yeah. All right. So even with the intensity reduction, volume stayed the same. Fatigue demon is there. All right, we got arms. All right, so first up we got triceps, and I normally cover my bases with triceps. So we have a kickback in the session, and then we also have a overhead press. So the reason for both of these being in there is then we get ultimately 6 sets of direct tricep work because of the dips that we did earlier in the session. But again, different positions for the long, medial, and lateral heads, and so that's generally my theme in a lot of these sessions. All right. So this is the loads that I had prescribed today, which is pretty heavy, not gonna lie. All right, so we'll do a little back down set for this next one. We do have a superset, so we're gonna grab the camera and go over to the preacher bench. All right, so if you haven't seen this variation before, you probably haven't seen my TikTok, but we essentially wanna go into a bent over position and get our shoulder position in roughly 70 degrees. So that kind of is about here. And so there's a little bit of evidence out there to suggest that that's going to get the highest EMG activity from the curl, especially in a profile like this, where at the top we still want a little bit of resistance. And people think that the biceps lose leverage here and brachioradialis turns on more, but that's just not the case because we're in a supinated grip. So this is going to purely be a bicep and brachialis exercise rather than brachioradialis. Now, a few little less reps on the left side because I have been hitting some tendinopathy stuff with my left bicep, but it's starting to get there. I'm just feeling it a little bit, so I'm not pushing the volumes as much. Thank you. Alright, come on. Lower the weight, get more reps. It's all you.
Thank you.
Of course. So as we're doing a little superset, I'm going to take a little bit more time, even though we did go down on the triceps. But this is essentially like a concentration curl variation. So the reason why we do this instead of, say, like a traditional position preacher curl, where essentially my elbow and shoulder flexion position are going to be generally in a slightly lower range of motion, or if I sit down, we're going to get them pretty high. What we do instead, we play on gravity a little bit, because in the top of this preacher curl, what I'm going to end up having is a line of action that stacks. Whereas if I bend over, at that 90 degree, I'm still very much in a position where gravity is acting down, and then even then, I won't ever be able to fully stack. So basically, it's just playing on a little bit of the line of action and then the resistance curve to basically optimize it for biceps. And so there probably are some other setup positions that make this feel and look a little less awkward, but this is the one that I've landed on. I'm going to give myself a little rest between sides as well, just so I can recover and recoup. But honestly, body's feeling good right now, and we're the lightest that we've been in 2025. So that's a fun little fact for today's session, is that I'm actually losing weight and we're still going. We got a little bit of ways to go for this prep, but we're going to be there. Oh, I need this bicep to heal, that's for sure. All right. All right, so we got a little bit more tricep work to do. And so the overhead position is where I like to take these. And the trick with these ones is we don't want this too low, and we actually don't want it to go into too deep of elbow flexion. So we want to go slightly past 90, but don't want to go into super deep ranges. Oh, so a little bit of 2-minute rest here. And so you might be like, oh Craig, why are you doing so many different variations? Again, you should know that I love variation, but basically there's two camps, right? There's the elbow by the side is going to hit the long head more, and then there's the outcome measure studies where we show greater hypertrophy in all three heads when we go overhead. So I think there is specific adaptations going on with the compression and rotation of the three muscles working in unison, but also the fact that the line of action is against gravity. I think there's an acceleration property that 2018 study did not account for in their modeling. And so that's why I think the fiber forces, the internal fiber forces that are experienced in the overhead position are probably greater than with the arm by the side, where it's likely that shortening velocities are slightly faster, which means less cross-break formation and means less internal fiber force. Now, that's speculative at the moment, but that's my theory, and that's why we see outcome measures greater in this position. So then you might be saying, well, why don't you just do more sets of this one? Again, I'm going to cover my bases, and I honestly like the feel of the kickback as well. And I normally can hit my rep ranges a little bit better wherever I put this overhead position, whereas as you saw with the kickbacks, that generally is the thing that fatigues first. So actually for me, for some reason, the kickback is a lot harder on the triceps. But that was enough talking. Hit this next exercise. All right, last couple of exercises. All right, so we're starting to finish this session off, and I normally like to go and do hammer curls, incline, so a little bit more brachioradialis for this one. Arms are definitely cooked, and I just realized I picked up the wrong weight, so that's why it was a little heavier than normal. So we're gonna do a little back down set. All right, last set, best set, and then we're gonna pose down. All right, we got a little pose down treat for you, and then we're out.
All that action,